Okay, it's 11 o'clock, so it's time to get started with the main stage track. So it is my great pleasure to introduce Nataly Merezhuk. She is a front-end software engineer at ClickHouse, but she's a career switcher. She used to be a jazz violinist. She's all the way from Washington, D.C., and she is going to talk to us about mapping Jane Austen's influence across space and time with Python and ClickHouse. So if we could give her a big round of applause, please.
It is a truth universally acknowledged that a curious mind in possession of a great data set is dying to explore it. Hello, PYCON UK. Welcome to Mapping Jane Austen's Influence Across Space and Time, a presentation on vector search with a Jane Austen flair. Do I have any Jane Austen fans in the audience? Yes, 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 all right, awesome. So I'm Nataly, a software engineer on the SQL console team at ClickHouse. My path to tech was a bit unconventional. Before the pandemic, I was a full-time jazz violinist. Transitioning careers has instilled in me a desire to keep learning and exploring, which is why I'm here presenting at a conference for the very first time. What an honor, and I'm totally thrilled. Thank you. So, what is this talk really about? Let's go on a fun and silly adventure into vector search through the lens of Jane Austen's novels. Vector Search 101, we're going to talk about searching by concepts, not just words. We're going to talk about creating content fingerprints, breaking down those concepts into parts by topic, style, structure. And of course, we are going to do some weighted search, which means you will be able to control what drives your results and balance between those fingerprints that you created. Who is this talk really for? New Pythonistas? I know, I see you. Maybe you started Python last week. Seasoned Pythonistas, you've been doing this for 20 years. I promise you'll still learn something. And, of course, the Jane Austen maniacs among us. Here's a quick look at the table of contents. And I also wanted to ask, are there any ClickHouse users in the house? Yes, I see a few hands up. Awesome. We'll talk about it more. Don't worry. We will start with my data exploration toolkit. Well, as a front-end dev, what can I say? Jupyter notebooks are my way of doing data science and exploring data, especially in this age of open source technology, data. How can you not try exploring, right? And they give me the fast feedback loop TikTok trained me for. You know, I just run those cells and I get it. It's awesome. But there's a problem. Jupyter is amazing for exploration, but it hits a speed bump with large data, and that is where ClickHouse comes in. So what is ClickHouse? At its core, it's an open source, column-oriented, distributed OLAP database. Purpose-built for analyzing data at scale. It is column-oriented, which means it doesn't read the full row, but only the columns you need for your query. It is distributed, which means it stays highly reliable through replication and sharding. And open source, created in 2009, and now it has a strong community and over 42,000 stars on GitHub. It is extremely easy to get up and running. Of course, you can go on ClickHouse Cloud and sign up, but you can also spin up a Docker container with just one line of code. After you've done that, you are able to connect using your Jupyter notebook, and this also takes just a few lines of Python. Now, let's move into dynamic data types and the basics of vector search. The reality of real-world data is messy. And this is true for healthcare records, e-commerce data, and in our case, cultural and media data that I'm exploring, and that is books and movies. This messiness is why flexible data types like JSON are so essential for modern analytics. And ClickHouse lets you take a hybrid approach. You can keep your structured data in regular columns and put all the messy, evolving metadata into a single JSON column. This is actually a new feature that we got just this year. And the implementation is simple as well. In your create table statement, you just define a column as JSON, and that is it. You can then insert your objects, whatever they are, if they're books, movies, TikToks, does not matter. And you can query them with simple dot notation. Now, on to vector search. What is a vector anyway? Let's forget code for a minute and talk about Austen's characters. We will start with Mr. Darcy. Any Pride and Prejudice fans over here? So let's create a character profile for Mr. Darcy based on a few traits. He's definitely very brooding, quite misunderstood, and not at all jolly. Now, who would be a close match? Batman, perhaps? And for a far match, Mr. Bean will do. So Batman and Mr. Darcy are quite similar in their broodiness, and Mr. Bean varies quite a bit on the jolly factor. So we can say that the distance between Darcy and Batman is very small. They have high similarity. The distance between Mr. Bean and Darcy, however, is high, so they have low similarity. And this is what a vector is. A list of numerical scores that captures the essence of its subject. And vector search is simply the process of finding the closest match by comparing those scores. ClickHouse is a performant vector database. We also support vector-specific types, and more recently, as of last month, I believe, powerful vector indices to make searches fast. And I would like to mention exact versus approximate vector search. The speed comes from using approximate search. Instead of an exact search that checks every single item, an approximate search uses a pre-built index to intelligently check only the most likely matches. It trades a tiny bit of accuracy for a massive gain in performance. To enable this in ClickHouse, there are two key commands. First, you add a vector similarity index to your table. Then, in your query, you use a function like cosine distance to find the items with the highest similarity to your search. Keep in mind, vector similarity indexes are available in ClickHouse version 25.8 and higher. I think it came out just last month. If you run into problems, you can ask in our Slack or GitHub. And to build the indexes for existing data, you need to materialize them. Now let's move on to crafting that Austen fingerprint. So, Jane Austen. She has had so much influence over the last few hundred years. She completed just 6 novels, but we have had countless movie adaptations, TV series spin-offs, even more book adaptations, festivals. I just came from the Jane Austen Festival in Bath, societies, clubs, anything you can name, really. But what makes her works persist? Why do people remember her 250 years on? What is a true representation of her style and work? How to capture the essence of her writing for vector search? And what makes a true Jane Austen fingerprint? And is one fingerprint enough? So we can make a single fingerprint for one of her books, or even one for all of her books. But is that good enough to find derivatives in other works inspired by her? No, it is definitely not, and this is what I was experimenting with. To get more control, we create a multi-part fingerprint. We will create separate vectors for Austen-like plot, character, and theme. So plot structure, character dynamics, writing style, all of these things make books, movies, and other works Austen-esque. Here are some examples. You can read them later on the slides if you want to. I'll just skip over them. All right. And then we've got our secret sauce, the anti-Austen fingerprint, which I made from things Jane Austen definitely did not write about. And that is Dracula, Star Wars, and Star Trek. I really needed that balance, and you will see why soon. Let's move on to semantic search, optimization, and analysis. So I started off by getting the top few works that were matching the Austen fingerprint, the full text fingerprint. And it was pretty good, expected at first glance. We see the original novels at the top. We also see some other Regency-themed books throughout. But what is this in third place? So unexpected. It is a political thriller? Where are we getting this? So I decided to dig deeper into it. I started comparing it against specific novels, and I saw that actually, with the full text fingerprint, it was ranking even higher than Pride and Prejudice. And this led me to the idea of combining fingerprints and assigning different weights to them. And what I found is that if I had a full text fingerprint and a theme fingerprint, when those were at 50-50, the political thriller disappeared and we only got Austen derivatives and Regency romance novels. And what was also very interesting is that at 100% theme fingerprint, we saw something else. This slide is full of modern books that explore timeless human topics, like societal structure and commentary and the contrast between private and public life, which are themes that persist throughout centuries and probably why Austen's works are still relevant today. But what about that anti-Austen fingerprint? How can we find those odd genre mashups like Pride and Prejudice and zombies, or Sense and Sensibility and sea monsters? Because I really wanted to find those. We can achieve this with a combination of fingerprints. And in my little Jupyter notebook, I made some sliders where I could slide around the weights. And I discovered that by testing different ratios of the plot and anti-Austen fingerprints, I found some Austen Agatha Christie mashup, and of course the zombies book. I went a little further and also added a mix-in fingerprint of sorts, and I added a tiny custom sea monsters fingerprint, and voila, I got Sense, Sensibility, and sea monsters. I might be going a little fast, but we are moving on to the last section on additional resources. So I would love to tell you a little bit about what my team builds. We build interactive dashboards, so if you choose to move from fun projects like this one with minimal data of about, 200,000 rows to petabytes of data, I encourage you to try out ClickHouse Cloud and give us feedback on our dashboards. We just had a new feature roll out this week, and it actually hasn't been announced yet, so you're in the know now. It is an AI feature where you can chat with your data. It can help you create dashboards and queries, and you can actually have a back and forth. And of course, we also have an MCP server, which is really well documented, and I also encourage you all to try it out. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for being here. This has been an incredible experience. The talk has been a little shorter than I expected, so if there are a few questions, I would be happy to answer them.
Okay, stick your hand up if you have a question. Oh, that was very quick.
Thank you very much. That was a really fun talk and a really fun example to kind of showcase all of that. I really enjoyed it. Since we have the time, would it be possible to take a look at some of the, I've forgotten what the name are now, the slides you kind of skipped over with the fingerprints?
Yes.
And also, could you kind of talk through how you created those, like what makes for a good version of one of those?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for asking. I really love that question. So, I thought a lot about this, mostly because I'm really new to this. I really like talking about topics that I'm learning about. I spend most of my days doing front-end stuff, and this is totally foreign. So, my first thought was, let me get all the novels from Project Gutenberg, right, and make fingerprints out of those. But what I found was that it basically matched her writing style. So I got a lot of those other 19th century novels, or maybe even early 20th century. And that was definitely not what I was going for, so I decided to kind of like drill down further. And I thought, okay, so I still need the plots, but I need them probably in modern language. So then I went to Wikipedia, because it's open source, I can use that data, and they have wonderful plot summaries. So I got the plot summaries for that, experimented with that, and then I also decided to drill down a little further and make descriptions kind of characters. And so I was experimenting with all of those, and it felt like an interesting kind of like drill down, right, from macro to micro. And then the last one, I believe, was creating a thematic fingerprint, which felt a little difficult, right, because it's hard to describe what her books are about in modern language, I suppose, or maybe I'm just a bad writer, so I was struggling with that. But that was a really fun experiment. I think one thing that I really wanted to do was I know there are more advanced ways of generating these fingerprints, not manually, but I just didn't have time to experiment with that. So I hope that answers your question.
I'm going to go to the back.
Cheers, thank you for that. So in your slides, you talk about diagnosing when your weightings in your vector weren't quite right. We're using really high dimensionality vectors at work, but they're open source models that don't have nearly the same level of specific labeling per vector element. Do you have any advice on how you might do the same sort of debugging, understanding where your vector isn't behaving the way you think it does when you haven't built it yourself?
I do not have advice right now, but if you would post that question in the Slack, in the ClickHouse community Slack, I will loop in the team that is working on our vector search capabilities so they can answer that in a better way for you.
Cheers.
Okay, I'll come around the other side. I don't know why you can't all sit together.
I was really nervous about being too slow.
Hey. Could you please tell me what is the improvement in, I'll say, full text search support in the recent versions of ClickHouse?
Could you please repeat your question?
Yeah. Could you please tell me what are the full text search support in the recent versions of ClickHouse?
Also cannot answer that, but I will take a note on that. And if you want to find me or also, again, ping in the public ClickHouse Slack, I would be super happy to loop the right people in.
If we have questions that aren't directly related to the talk that was just given, I think you can add them to the Discord, and then you'll probably get a better answer that way.
The Discord is perfect. One there, yeah.
I was going to thematically jump across to the keynote. Did you get any results in other languages?
I was thinking about that. I'm bilingual, so I was really curious. For this talk, I decided not to dive into that too deep, but I was experimenting with the multilingual sentence transformers model, and that seemed like a really interesting start, and I look forward to diving into it more. I wish I was at the keynote. Unfortunately, I missed it, so I'm looking forward to listening to it. Yeah.
Oh, I've got one more. Sorry.
And there's one more on the other side, I think.
Thanks for a great talk. I noticed that a graphic novel appeared as one of the top hits. Was there a way to optimize for the format of the books that appear, like just to have graphic novels in your results, for instance?
So yes, I think this was a problem with the quality of my data. So my idea initially was actually to create a map with geographic locations and timelines, but what I found is that open source data on books isn't very complete. It's actually highly guarded, and I think this is why, for example, the Goodreads API has been closed down. I actually found a really interesting open API. It's called the Hardcover API, but its data is very incomplete. And so I think definitely I would have loved to drill down more, but I decided that for the purpose of this talk, I would not.
Okay, there was one over this side. Is that about right? I'm coming down. Two over this side.
Hello there, thank you for the good talk. So you mentioned that you chose Star Wars, Star Trek, and Dracula as pieces of works that have anti-Austen themes characteristics. Is there anything in particular about those pieces of works that made them distinctly useful to your searches? Or could you have chosen any other pieces of work that had a varied enough themes to become anti-Austen?
There is a purpose to why I chose those, specifically Dracula horror, because I knew about the Pride and Prejudice and Zombies book, and so I knew it had a horror twist, and I was having a really difficult time finding it using vector search, and so I was really trying to think, oh, like, what is really wrong here, what's not matching? And it looks like the reason is Austen just didn't write horror, right? So we got to mix that in. So that's why I did that, and it really helped. One other thing that was happening, I had a lot of historical romance coming up and Highlander novels like Outlander. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want any of these. How do I get them out of here? And I realized that also with that, I could have had an Outlander, Highlander fingerprint.
I think we'll make this a final question. Here you go.
Thank you. I thought that was an absolute wonderful, exciting talk. One of the things I do is I teach introductory programming to humanities undergraduates. And the thing, you might have said it, but it didn't quite catch on me. The scoring of the various dimensions, that was reading a summary and distilling it from that. So the Mr. Darcy Moody, if somebody hadn't read the book, how would they get that? There doesn't seem to be an automatic way to get that. You just do it manually?
So in that example, I was just kind of like trying to explain the basics of how it happens, and I hope it was clear. I'm new to it all, but what I was doing in my actual analysis in the notebooks was I was taking, I experimented. I had, I believe, the title and the description of the book, and I might have had something else. So I was not manually defining anything on the book data set, but I made sure that the book data set had really nice descriptions that I could use.
Okay, I think that was probably the most confident first conference talk I've ever heard, so if we could have a massive round of applause for Nataly. Thank you, Nataly.